Good evening, everybody. I think we will have a few more people joining, but let's get started because we have a lot to get to this evening, and we don't want to keep you much past the hour if we can help that. I think all of you know me. My name is Matthew Snade, acting head here at the Stanley campus of IMS. This is our second middle school information session. I think probably about half of those that are joining us attended the in-person session back on March 6th. And the rest, I think, are joining us for the first time. So we've designed this to give a bit of a review of what we've talked about in the first session, or at least cover some of that territory. But now we're going to do a fair bit of a deeper dive into the program itself. Kyle's going to walk us through quite a bit on that side, and also Ada is going to walk us through some information on the Chinese side of the program too. Because, of course, as all things IMS, we are a fully bilingual program as we go forward. So this evening, we have Karen Ann, one of our school founders, will be
Hello.
speaking and is joining us. We have Kyle Wagner, of course, who's one of the leaders of the program, will be speaking. And we have Ada Wang. Miss Ada is also here. She'll be speaking shortly. And we will start off by introducing you to Dr. Timothy Veal. So you've all met Dr. Veal or been introduced to him via email and by communications that we send out school-wide, but this is the first time to really hear from Tim. So Tim, if you can start off and say a little bit about yourself and your perspective on the middle school journey that we're about to undertake.
Absolutely, Matthew. Thank you very much. And happy birthday, by the way, I should mention, Matthew.
Yeah.
Happy birthday today. It's good to be part of this, everybody. I'm really thrilled to be meeting you, even in this way for the first time, and look forward to doing so in person in the near future. My name is Timothy Veal, and I would like to tell you a little bit about my background just to begin and what you can expect from this slideshow and a little bit of what I can contribute to helping develop your understanding of the middle school that is developing at IMS. I've been working and leading at international schools since 1998, living overseas. I'm originally from Vancouver, British Columbia. And since 1998, I have been working at international schools in 8 different countries. I'm really excited to be calling Hong Kong home in the very near future. I have a PhD in educational leadership from Purdue University in the United States. And as mentioned, I'm really super excited about joining IMS, both for professional, but also for personal reasons. I'll start with the professional. This is my third headship. Having served as a previous founding head elsewhere, I can tell you that I know and have led through this process that IMS is going through, this expansion by adding the middle school. Having led through something very similar, I'm really excited for it to succeed at IMS with my new colleagues who are part of this call and others who are already at the school. I have experience in leading bilingual schooling elsewhere from previous locations. And for these professional reasons, I'm just really excited to be able to be part of what's going to happen at IMS, this next exciting stage of expansion with the middle school. But it's not just for professional reasons, it's also for personal reasons. I'm also a parent like you, and my youngest child, my daughter, is going to be joining our school as well. So I have a vested personal interest in this as well, just like you do. And so I'll be part of your journey in seeing our school grow and develop and make it a wonderful place. The wonderful place that it already is, but being able to help develop that into the middle school as a parent and as a professional. So I'm really excited about this. Just to go back to my professional experience a little bit, I do have deep experience in whole school through trained learning. So all of my schooling, virtually all the schools I've been at have gone from the youngest, the early years children, all the way up to grade 12. So having started and founded a school, combined with the experience at different places that I've been, again, I'm just really excited for this to succeed at IMS. I know what it takes to succeed, and I know what that kind of success looks like. And I'm already seeing all those signs in place at IMS right now. And so what's happening next is really great for the school and going to be great for our children, our students, your children at our school. I want to finish off by just talking about if I could give what I think is a simple idea about how this is going to take place. That idea is that simple idea is that each experience, as I see it, is simply a rehearsal for the next one. Each experience we have in life is a rehearsal for the next one that inevitably comes, right? Having said that, knowing that this is how things happen, as professionals, we just need to plan backwards. So just as the purpose of schooling is to prepare students for the rest of their life, the purpose, if I could put it this way, is for grade 11, if I can use that term. The purpose of grade 11 is to prepare students for success in grade 12. And the purpose of grade 10 is to prepare students for success in grade 11. And if you think about it that way and just plan backwards, think about it backwards, all the way back to when your children start at IMS when they're 18 months old, we're preparing them for success the following year. So as IMS expands, we have a plan for every age. We have a plan for every stage. So what you're going to learn about today is our plan for the middle school stage, to give you that in a nutshell. It's great. I'm really excited about it. And I imagine that it will get you excited too. We have a lot to share in the following slides. So thanks for being part of this.
Thank you so much, Tim. We're so excited to be working together on this very shortly, very soon. So I'd like
Can't
to
wait.
jump in now just to give everybody a perspective of how we came to be here, because we keep telling people this has been over 7 years in the making. But I think it's interesting to hear the story very quickly. So I'm just going to step us through. So actually going all the way back to 2016 was when we started thinking about, hey, can we extend our program into the middle years or the secondary years? And we actually went to visit many schools all over the world to see what their programs were like. So, yeah, so, we went to the US, Matthew went to the US, I went to Japan, we all went over Tokyo, etc. And then Kyle also went to Philippines, which actually is a very big Montessori school with 14 schools and 5 secondary programs now. So they have a lot of experience as well, and we know all these people well. We took what we learned from them. We got really excited what we learned, and actually we just want to show you that the Montessori adolescent program has really grown a lot over the last 10 years. It is all over the world. So we are doing our best to take the best practices. We have the people who have done this to create a great program. So from all our travels, we learned that the adolescent needs these kinds of things. And actually, Paul spoke about that a lot on the first session. And in order to provide the adolescent with opportunities for these needs, we also learned what kind of environment works well for our children. So if we go to the next slide, we learned that adolescents really thrive in small settings, working very close side by side with adults, with teachers who understand them and doing a lot of meaningful work. And this is what really struck me, is that, we're really good at doing this. And especially for the puberty years. Those 2 years are such sensitive and formative times for the children. And we felt we were very inspired at that time to do something very unique for that age group. And that's what started our whole journey back from 2017. So first thing we did was brought in consultants, and here I have a picture of Paul Epstein. Some of you met him a few weeks ago. It's amazing that Paul will be continuing to work with us on this program from so many years ago. He has a vast experience in adolescent Montessori. We also conducted a focus group with actually several, one with our parents and one with our children at that time, to learn what they wanted from the middle school program and to gather all that information. Here's some pictures of that experience, which was very energizing and eye-opening. And then the next step was we hired Cal. We said, okay, we're going to do this. Who's a great person to come? And Kyle moved from the US here. His background, well, he'll share with you on it later, but you here now see a photo of Kyle back then. And he pretty much looks the same. Very good. And Kyle is back with us again. wonderful again that we have the same people with that continuity on the program. So with all this in place, we needed the government to support us. And we'd been doing some background work. But in October of 2017, we were very fortunate that the president of AMI was in Hong Kong, and we got a meeting with him and the Secretary for Education, very high level meeting, telling them what our aspiration was, why we want this program. And we told them that we wanted to set up the middle school in the Stanley campus and provide 75 places for children of these 2 years, grade 7 and grade 8. And actually, at that time, the Secretary for Education said, sounds like a great idea. And we were full steam ahead with doing all the work to set it up. So this, remind you, this is in October of 2017. So we started to recruit students and put the designs together, build the curriculum. Kyle was on the ground at the time. So you can see here, we recruited 15 grade 6 students who wanted to stay for middle school. They actually planned the space together with Kyle, what it looked like. And this is what it looks like. The space that we designed then, which we will use now. Go back one to the floor plan, Kyle. So this is actually in our Stanley campus on the ground floor, overlooking our basketball court and our garden. They talked about, we want it to be very, open space. It has a coffee corner. Now we can look at some of the artist renditions of what it will look like, just to show everybody, with a coffee area, work area, meeting areas, etc. So we were very, very excited. All the work was going on. Architects were involved. And then we were pushing. We had asked them in October. We sent in all the proposals. We answered their questions from the government. In May of 2018, the government told us that we were not allowed to do this program. We were devastated. We immediately placed all 15 children in secondary schools in Hong Kong. And 2 months later, we resubmitted our application because we were not going to give up on this. So since 2018 to now, what have we been doing? Well, we've been lobbying, finding all the people that we could find to support this. The AMI, the IMC, Montessori Worldwide Organization supported us, local consulates and chambers supported us. And of course, in February, we got all of you to write to support this, and we received 400 letters. And that led to us getting the okay to do it in the Stanley campus in mid-February, which for us is really important. We worked so hard for us. All of you in our community have been asking for this for so long. Every time I see a parent, they asked about it, and we're entering a new era for IMS. So we are very excited that we can get this together, and I think I won't talk too much. I think I'm coming to the end of my slides. I'm going to hand over to Kyle so that he can actually tell you about the nuts and bolts of the program. And
All right,
also,
well, thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Sorry, were you not finished, Karen?
I was just going to say, people can write their questions in the comment box, right? Yes.
Yep. So
Kyle, over to you.
we are excited, and we hope you are equally as excited. And we appreciate everybody's support through this whole process. You played an integral part in lobbying the government and doing what's best for your child. So we talked about our excitement. What is your excitement? In the chat box, okay? This is going to be a little test to see how well you are able to use the Zoom features. You'll see a little chat icon. Click on that. What excites you most about an IMS middle school? So just write in the chat box. We'll give this about 30 seconds. See what's exciting you the most. Just find the chat box and write something in.
We have had some discussions with our grade 5 and 6 students already, and we have some feedback from them about questions they have and what's exciting as well. So we have that there too.
All right, we got some answers flowing into the chat box. Don't be shy. Less pressure to find a new school. There we go. We'll have to start the program over again. Bilingual, overseas trips, continuity. Okay, great. Connections, the community, the cafe. Sarah, you might be getting some coffee every morning from this business. Let's see, Ambrose's continuity of transition from primary. Good. Small class, continuation, familiar environment. Continue our learning system, put the child's needs first. Bigger library. All right. Expansion to our library. Continuation of curriculum. Knowing how to do business, CAS projects, great. We have a lot of success with those CAS projects, and we want to keep that going. Strong bilingual program, entrepreneurship, that my child continue educational journey, being young leaders, wonderful. Learning how to share. Okay, your time for contributing is shrinking. Write in the chat box now or forever hold your peace. All right. Great. Thank you for sharing. We asked your children, Matthew, I think you went by, right? And with Bill, as well as Will and some others, and asked your children, what were your main questions and what were your biggest hopes for the middle school? Here's what came up for your children. We had some big themes around wanting to be able to teach the elementary students, the timetable, right? Which we're going to be able to show you a little bit of that tonight. Field trips, overseas trips. We're going to talk about travel and how that looks. How do single subjects work, right? We know the adolescents are going to crave for that deeper connection to each of the academics. And what does that look like in a schedule? Can we have access to new or more books? Certainly. Biggest hopes. Again, opportunities to attend overseas trips, travel, playing sports teams. We'll talk a little bit about the sports program at IMS and how we're going to still offer opportunities for that. New learning opportunities, new ECA opportunities, books and resources. So we're definitely going to cover those things. And we're also going to cover a couple other things that probably you as parents are very interested in knowing. Because whereas your children might be very interested in overseas trips and teaching the elementary students, we know as parents that you hold your breath when it comes to secondary period and want to ensure that really there's, the curriculum is rich. And we are going to go through that. We talked about our groundwork. We're going to talk about the core components, what makes a Montessori middle school different from elementary and other programs around. Staffing, how are we staffing this and how does that look different from maybe the way other schools are staffing, and how are we staffing it to allow for really rich content discovery and exploration, and also for personalization with your students. We'll get into the curriculum and how we're structuring that and what makes our curriculum structure unique, but what also makes it connected to the way secondary programs are currently running. And finally, something everybody wrote in the chat window almost was, what about our bilingual Chinese language learning, which Ada is on board to help support and describe how that will look. So let's jump right in. But before we jump in, I want to give you just a quick background of myself. This is me as a much younger version with bleached blonde hair and my peace shirt on in the grounds of High Tech High, which is one of the most infamous project-based learning schools. Students were designing their own engineering contraptions to go across the waterway that separated our school from the riverbanks. They're also writing field journals and connecting with local universities. And when I saw these kids doing this kind of work, I said, something special is there. So I worked in that project-based program that then helped me with this journey of traveling overseas. I fell in love with overseas the first time I attended a summer camp, running a bilingual summer camp. That turned into an opportunity to start a project-based program where students would learn through this project-based model, interdisciplinary model. You see the three people pictured there. We have a similar model here with humanities, math, science, and Chinese. Students you see here are leading their own investigations and inquiries. This is the program we built and the space within it. I wrote a book about that experience. It led me into consulting work where I've worked with over 100 international schools worldwide. Of course, terrible COVID hit and forced us all online. I decided to venture into what are people doing that's different? How are we doing school differently? And what shifts are people making to make things more student-centered? I wrote a book, and then I became familiarized with Montessori. I visited IMS for the first time and said, this is one of the most student-centered places I've ever seen. I think Dr. Tim can attest to that as well, where it was very difficult to find a teacher in the room because students were so empowered. So that led me to wanting to help out in any way I could. And of course, IMS was starting its middle school program, and the rest, they say, is history. One thing we got to know about our adolescents is that we are entering into a different phase. Their hands are growing, their feet are growing. One day they wake up, their voice has changed a couple octaves. And, Montessori talks about this in terms of planes of development. And really, as we move from upper elementary to the adolescent phase, she narrowed it down to the central craving for meaning, making meaning, and work must be meaningful. Understand myself, especially in a social type of setting. We know they're forming their identity and they want to be a part of meaningful work. Okay, so with that in mind, that is how we designed our program. How do we get kids involved with meaningful work and tie all those pieces together? So when you look at these core tenets, these are the core tenets of our middle school. Okay, so I'll give you a second to look at that. We've chatted a bit about small community, which we know is important for this age group. We talked a bit also, and some of you wrote in the chat window, about the importance of entrepreneurship and students to be independent. We know those students have built those foundations for self-directed learning in the elementary program. And what does that look like in the adolescent program to be involved in adult level work? Montessori once famously said, education is not preparation for life. It is life itself. So what does that look like in students taking adult roles? We'll talk about that. Experiential learning. You know, we know learning needs to be connected to actual things that students are experiencing. And finally, which is really the core backbone of our academics, is how we fuse these things together in an interdisciplinary fashion. Okay, so hopefully you stay with me tonight. There'll be a pop quiz at the end. Hopefully you get 100% about these components and how they work together. So let's talk about one of the most important features of the program, which is our staffing. Okay, how do you have a staff that allows for this? We want people who love adolescents and who can connect with this age group. And we also want people who bring in a lens from the real world, from science, from humanities, and from Chinese and language. And you'd be happy to know that we're looking at people and staffing this according to people who bring those different lenses. The core teaching team will be humanities and language specialists, a math science specialist, and Chinese language specialist, which will support learning within our themes, but they'll also support learning in their individual subjects to ensure your students are prepared within their subjects to transition to secondary. Single subject specialists, that's one of the things you guys asked about. We will still have those. So when it comes to health and PE, and the studios, which we'll talk about with art, music, and design, we'll have those specialists supporting the program. Okay, so that's a little bit of the staffing model. The core teaching team will be our core ones in the program the whole time. We'll have single subject specialists rotating in and out. Now, how are we organizing things? Okay, curriculum, which you're probably very interested in finding out. And we're going to share with you in a second how math, how science, and how language and how everything fits together. But first, we want to start with the big picture. And the big picture is these thematic units of study. Okay, so look at this for a second. Okay, and one of the things you might notice, it's very similar actually to the way the MYP program is delivered. Okay, you have a central inquiry question, you have a theme, okay, and you have a way to explore that theme. And we run this on 2 different A-B year rotations, because as we know, we have mixed age levels. So in this next year, we'll start with the A year, but then the year after, we'll go to the B year. And then the next group coming in will get the A year, and the students who are moving on to that year 8 will get that year as well. So we're running it this way so we can have the mixed age level. But here's the difference of our program from the IB and the MYP. Okay, you ready for it? It's inquiry-based, but it's inquiry-based across subjects. That is the big differentiator. So we're not just learning about identity in one particular subject. We're exploring that from multiple lenses, multiple different subjects. Okay, so we'll give you just a sample. I want you to just stare at this for a second. Okay, I know it might be a lot to take in. Now, I'm not going to go through each point, but the point I want to make to everybody who is here is we are not sacrificing anything by doing things this way. In fact, we are gaining. We are still covering that important content in humanities, in science, in language, in literature, in Chinese. but we're doing it in a very meaningful way that are connected to bigger questions. Each one of these units of inquiry finish and actually are taught, not just through that inquiry, but through real meaningful projects. And we're going to talk about one of those projects in one of these themes of identity and run through how that looks in the program. But just rest assured, we get lots of subject-specific content, and we also get connections to these larger themes. Ada, I'm going to transition to you to talk about how the Chinese connects to those themes.
Everyone, yes, I'm just going to talk briefly about it because later we will dig into one topic and give you more specific example. So you can see how Chinese bilingual immersive work is like similar. We will continue the same theme as the whole topic in the middle school program. And then within that theme, there will be some literature group we will talk about later. There will be core text, and that's for the literacy part. And then we will also merged with humanity and the science, and then they will be learned in a meaningful way in Chinese too. So you can see the bilingual, the Chinese is also like everywhere in those themes.
Thanks so much, Ada. And the beauty of this is learning, as we know, is not confined in the real world to subjects. Learning is across subjects, and we want to really tap into your child's natural curiosity. And really, we do that through this inquiry-based lens where we're fitting that curriculum in where it makes sense. Now, the moment you all been waiting for, the timetable. Okay, I want you to take a second to look at this timetable. Now, the next part of this presentation is going to be explaining how this timetable works together. Of course, we have three lenses, I'm sorry. We have the lens of the interdisciplinary thematic unit, which is going to pull the content from a few of these different blocks to work in towards that thematic unit. We also have the subject-specific skill building times that you're going to see built in there. You see for math and language and some of these studios. And then we also have your own child's interests in mind as well, in terms of how they're developing the curiosity they come in naturally with and what they want to explore, which we'll see a little bit in these open times that are in white here. So let's take you through, okay? Let's take you through the first 8 weeks and take you through an intensive of how these subjects will work together in terms of an actual unit. And right before we do that, I want to show you something that's going to make everyone breathe easy. Okay, for all the parents out there who are concerned, well, what about mathematics? What about Chinese language, English language? And look, I get it. We all come from this kind of learning ecosystem. Rest assured, we are still covering our minimum academic hours for each of these subjects in a way that is very similar to other national schools. It's just the way that we're organizing. And I think when we take you through this example, you will see the meat on the bone when it comes to the academics and how they're getting that. Let's take you through one unit, okay? I'm going to take you through an example of the identity theme, okay? The big question, who am I? What makes me me? Okay, how are identities shaped? How is my identity shaped? How is my community's identity shaped? We're looking at this from multiple lenses. This is an 8-week thematic experience. Okay, and before I get in the nuts and bolts of what this might look like within each subjects, look at the happy faces of these kids in terms of who they are and what makes them me. And they went through a deep investigation in discovering that. Okay, that investigation, which will share those different parts, crossed many different subjects. It had them looking into their own backgrounds. That had them looking into the cultural aspects of their surroundings. It had them looking into the local geography. It had them in science looking at their heredity, their traits. It had them in Chinese looking at their Chinese self and their experience in this, which at the time was Beijing. And we're going to show you the deep level work they did. But I want to show you what it can look like. These are kids presenting their learning to an authentic audience around their identity. And they built these identity books as a result of this. So let's walk you through what that looks like when it comes to each of the subjects. So if you see here, as I described in humanities, we do a deep dive in terms of culture, develop cultural values, beliefs, group identity, talk a little bit about religion. We talk about geography and settlement, movement, and place. And by the way, these are all referenced to curriculum standards for each of these subjects, but in a way that's meaningful. In science, the lens that they look at this through is through, as I mentioned, inheritance, variation of traits, of genes, environmental factors, epigenetics, natural selection, adaptation, in terms of how these kind of traits come about. So we explore this not just from a human side, but also from a natural selection from an animal side as well. So this is the way in which we are delivering the content. One way, not the only way, but one way is through these thematic units of study. And also in language, in English, they have rich literature discussions around identity and how that emerges, especially relationship to adolescence. And I think, Ada, you wanted to mention here about the Chinese.
And then just like this is the one topic for Me Inc. And then the kids will dive into different topics, including history and geography, also in Chinese. So there, I put some Chinese there because there's some like specific about the culture immersion, like to go through their family name and then maybe their family mottos, and then to discuss about it, and then to have a little speech about how their family, where it started from. And then this all relevant to one of the literature books we will share in the literature cycle is 父类家书. It's like family letters going through. So they're reading the authentic literature at the same time they're digging into and make it connecting to themselves. So that's how we make the learning meaningful. And then even though if the Chinese is not the first language, or this language learning, the language learning experience is very meaningful to them, and they're relevant to help them to shape, to find their own identity. And then with the project, we also have some project, we call it podcast series. Then they can link with the elementary students to have some interviews, and then to interview about how the elementary students thinking about themselves. And is there any story they can share to make our IMS own podcast? So that's also will be bilingual and excited.
Thank you so much, Ada, for sharing. So I think everybody is seeing the power of having a theme and a question that drives things. Now, when it comes to the project itself, we have put, hey, identity books, podcast series, but of course, this is something that we are involving the students in discussion, because we want this to be as student-centered as possible and get them into what kind of projects are they interested in exploring, what ways are they interested in sharing their identity. And we typically will break this up into 3 different periods, which will be the investigative period, which we're really getting all the foundational knowledge, the exploration to their own identities and how that's influenced with these mini lessons that help support that, and then to the creation phase where they're working on these culminating projects. Okay, so now let's take you through what that looks like in a timetable. So as you saw from the initial timetable, those chunks of time, inquiry-based interdisciplinary learning, are directly related to that larger theme. Now, notice we didn't put the actual subjects there within the inquiry-based learning because it's dependent, as I mentioned, on that exploration phase. It will be humanities or science-based initially in that investigation. So we're going to explore what that would look like in each of those subjects, and then also how language fits into that theme, but the students will also be getting their individualized language lessons. So let's explore what that looks like in an inquiry-based framework. As we mentioned before, we are referencing the standards. So when we look at this inquiry, we look at what is the natural curriculum that they are covering in year 7 and 8 when it comes to these different subjects. In science, it's physical science, it's life science, it's engineering, and it's space. These different topics of science, and this one naturally kind of fits a little bit more into this whole life science and, you know, anatomy and these kind of things. So that fits in naturally with this particular theme where they're exploring their genetics, their DNA, their traits. But as you see here in the picture, they explore science from many other lenses, depending on what the theme is, whether they're building sustainable gardens, whether they're doing experiments and using the scientific process, Or here, you know, whether you see them doing some engineering experiments as well. So science is going to be rich, hands-on, project-based. In humanities, within the theme of identity, of course, as we mentioned, they're exploring their own personal identity. They're becoming anthropologists. We don't want students just to study humanities from a book. We want them to actually be living historians and living anthropologists. So as you see in the pictures, you see them actually doing that deep dive exploration. You see them also looking at their own geography. You see them presenting different identities in those pictures. They'll be covering geography, history, citizenship, economics, and culture. Those are the major topics within that subject-specific humanities curriculum. And as I mentioned, doing hands-on work within identity, they're looking at their cultural and heredity influence. Some parents might ask, hey, are they going to write that 5-paragraph essay? Are they going to write that informative piece? And we can easily weave those things in. So for example, this is from one of the identity books of a student that studied his 4 different cultures and background. And he came away, he said this at the end, he said, his parents actually said he's never explored his heritage and his culture in this way ever before. And as a result, these kids want to do this high level work because they know it's going to be public. So this is his study of his 4 different cultures. Ada, do you want to talk briefly through Chinese?
This is a work example, I believe, from Beijing. So yeah, so you can see for the portfolio the kids will make, they can have different multimedia way to present themselves in writing, and then they can take writing into a little speech, and then they will do the similar in the whole writing in Chinese.
Wonderful. So as you see too, the Chinese levels, you're going to see different levels in terms of the students' work. And that is what's the wonderful part about our program being so small, is that we can still teach those language levels and support them in the overall theme and the project, but also in their own skill development, which we're going to show you later when it comes to language development, which happens later in the day. You notice every single day they're getting their English and their Chinese language. And again, because we have a small program, we can have small groups and continue those language levels as we have in elementary, but really make those very rich into the themes, but also to their own language development. So the language lessons, the way we run them is very seminar workshop based. As you notice here, they're sitting in circles and they're discussing literature in a deep way. They're coming up with the questions, their literary analysis of that. And it's rich, it's discussion based. But rest assured that your students are going to become very adept readers, writers, and speakers. When it comes to the actual curriculum itself, you notice where that star is. Yes, they did write a culture essay, a poetry piece, and a life experience memoir. Okay. However, throughout the course of the year 7, 8 program, they're going to be an exposure to all these different elements that we know make students fabulous communicators, and language being a part of expressing themselves and who they are, and also being able to understand and make sense of the world. So that's a little bit of each of those subjects. And then Ada is going to chat a bit about the Chinese language lessons.
Yes, I'm so excited to talk about this because what I mentioned above about all those Chinese, it's not yet happening in language lesson yet. So all the thing I talk about bilingual, immersive, it's all in different subject area, in the humanity, and then inquiry-based learning environment. Then every day, just like elementary, we're still having a daily Chinese language lesson. And that is the time that we tailored for their Chinese proficiency. And then the format is similar as the elementary small group Chinese lesson. So we use standardized textbooks. And then according to kids' Chinese level, we enhance them with our school-based materials to help them to do their project, to do their meaningful work. So if we understand, so what we were talking about the bilingual immersive, it's like bilingual mind, how they use two languages to do different projects, to do meaningful work for themselves. And for small group Chinese, we are talking more about biliteracy. So we are giving them more skills and tools to enhance their Chinese levels. So here's an example of Chinese native level. So we'll still use the textbook, and it's a continuity of elementary program. So we will use 初中中国语文. So this is a standardized program and according to the Chinese language standard, and then emerge with language proficiency, speaking, listening, and then with all the values coming in. And then we're also talking about non-native level. So how we prepare them. So non-native level, we use Meizhou Chinese and Chinese Made Easy, also the continuity of elementary. I want to highlight here is Meizhou Chinese and Chinese Made Easy did a great job. One is on the AP standard based in the United States. Another, their topics is based on IB, IGCSE. So this will give them a good exit point later on when they move into different program to continue their Chinese learning. Yes.
Thanks so much, Ada. So we have the two-pronged approach where they're going to be getting subject-specific content related to the theme and related to better understanding and answering that question in the projects that they're going to undertake, and also in terms of their just development of those skills, that language-based acquisition that we know is so important. Now, when it comes to self-expression, Montessori said that students during this adolescent period are really trying to find out who they are and make sense of what is their place in the world. And so we allow for that during these different blocks of time. The advisory, the morning meeting, students meet every single morning for their physical, social, emotional, and mental health in small groups. And we're going to talk a little bit about what health looks like in terms of their physical education. So as you see here, this is a morning meeting, students sitting in circles, and each student will be connected to a mentor or an advisor. One of an adults, they say that during this period of time, the adolescents are really looking for a mentor or a guide, an adult figure they can really trust and respect. That serves as a role model, because we know that adolescents are watching our every move. And one of the things you always hear adolescents say is, that's not fair. So they're looking for fairness. They're looking for an adult to model themselves after. We know how important it is to have that mentor. And so that's our advisory program. And in our advisory program, when it comes to identity, having these opportunities for students to showcase their unique identities. You see here at the bottom, the students featuring a unique talent. When it comes to health in sports, okay, students will be continuing their physical health, but we're looking at health as more holistic. Yes, there will be those opportunities for students to take the team and individual sports throughout the year. And we've carved in time for that, the team sports, but also the individual sports, and also the individualized attention that they need according to their health goals. So because we have a small program, we can really design it, and a single subject specialist can really support students around what their goals are when it comes to health. Not everybody needs to be taking tennis at the same time, or swimming or basketball at the same time. We'll have those opportunities, but we'll also personalize our health program so that it can be really based around students' own physical health needs, which is why you see here in the asterisk, personalized fitness routines when it comes to that first unit identity is exploring the different aspects of their own health, their own nutrition, their own goals, and doing a deep dive into that. We also have the ability to use local sports facilities as well, and we have our own facilities on campus already. Now, when it comes to art, music, drama studios, as well as design tech, currently in your upper elementary program, students are getting one of these single subjects in a particular cycle. We really want to go on a deep dive. So where you see art, music, or drama, they're going to have those two periods that you see art, music, or drama. It's going to run on three different cycles. So we're going to do deep dives into visual art. We're going to do a deep dive into music. We're going to do a deep dive into drama and performance. So they're taking 2 of those sessions per week. And also the design tech is going to be relevant to the themes that they're exploring. So again, we want them to be connected to these interdisciplinary themes. We also want it to be based on child's curiosity and interest. So when it comes to that first unit identity, students could be putting together these visual self-portraits that represents their identity, who they are. But they also will be looking at digital media as well. So we really want to make this personalized around students' needs. And also we want to go deep into each of these particular creative arts and expressions so they get exposure to each of those before we do this big production. So we're looking at the second semester in the program with them putting these things together for these productions or dramatic performances. Now, design tech, you'll be happy to know, and most programs, IB included, international programs, have coding, robotics, these kind of things that are built in. And we also have that. As you saw, we have a design tech period time. But what's great about our design tech is that we have a very small amount of students. We have specialized support that can support these students, yes, in helping them understand coding and prototyping, but specifically related to their projects. The projects that are related to that bigger theme and their own individual projects. In this particular case of identity, it's that digital book creation and graphic media, but other times it's looking more robotics and engineering, and sometimes it's looking at coding, okay? And I think you've probably seen this space if you've been to visit International Montessori School. We built this space initially for the middle school, but it's now been served by the entire school where students are doing hands-on project work. Will is fabulous. He is going to be the single subject support specialist to help students in their exploration of design tech. Math lab, okay? Mathematics is something that is top of mind for a lot of parents. The biggest question I ever get when it comes to project-based structures is, how are you going to deliver mathematics? And I get it, okay? I was also a math kid. I was taking advanced levels math when I was a student. And, you know, I understand how important it is to get that daily work. You've got to build your math muscle, and we allow for that. So we have math lab that's happening every single day. Now, math lab is going to be structured to support kids in two different ways. Okay, one, as we mentioned, is supporting the overall project. In this case, a probability students were designing probability games and learning about probability to be able to understand that. When they were doing sustainability, they were looking at crop yields and looking at crop yields from this exponential rates and how crop yields relates to these algebraic equations and expressions that they were generating. But we know how important it is also for math, not just to be related to the project, because they need that strong foundation. We know how important that is. So we have an entire curriculum that's really built around that sequential approach to math that we know is so important. We're not going to run through every single one of these. We don't have the time. But if you see some of these things, rest assured, hey, is my kid going to know about square roots or how to convert percents to fractions and how to add integers? Yes. Okay. They will be learning all of those things in Math Lab. One, through their targeted instruction around moving through the mathematics curriculum, and also around the larger project-based, problem-based experience, so they can go deeper into seeing how math applies to the real world. And speaking of the real world, okay, and here's, again, some of the math materials that we're going to be referencing. By the way, within this Math Institute, this is used by many Montessori adolescent programs around the world, so we're referencing the best practice when it comes to the actual manipulative students will use to be able to gain all these concepts, okay? Again, we mentioned the real world, and we left it to now because we wanted to get you through all the subject stuff so you can go, okay, I can see how they're getting all that rich content within each subject. Now we can talk about the business. As Montessori said, education is life itself. And what does adult meaningful work look like? How do we teach kids commitment and responsibility? We do that through the students running and maintaining their own business, okay? That is something for students to go through the different process of generating the ideas, the raising of the capital, the running of the business, the development of the spreadsheets and profit and loss statements, the products that they're going to be selling, their supply chains, everything that you probably talk about in your own businesses that you run in the adult world. Okay, so all of those things are going to come about. And in Chinese, Ada, we got about a minute. You want to just share this really quickly?
I think, yeah, just like back there, so all the skills they learned and everything, we make it into meaningful work, and then so they can do all those different jobs, and then in both languages, and then it's like real and authentic and related to themselves.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. So again, this bilingual program, we're not separating English and Chinese. It's not always, okay, now we do the English stuff and now we do the Chinese stuff. We want to make this integrated because students that can speak in both languages, they can process and think in both languages, that can run businesses in both languages, we know are going to be quite successful in the future. This is the meaningful work. Adolescents, I'm telling you, I know this because I worked with them for almost 20 years. They are excited about one thing one day, and the next day, it's the silliest thing in the world. Okay, that is why the business is so important. It gets them teaching this level of commitment and responsibility. Yes, that business might change in terms of what they're buying or selling, but that is one of the cornerstones of the program, to teach them that commitment and responsibility. Finally, one of the last things we're going to share is this Montessori work cycles that you saw with the upper elementary, as well as these mini courses and electives. With the work cycles, students still have the opportunity to plan out what they're going to be doing during those cycles. That could be the electives that they're choosing to pursue. That could be additional work that they want to undergo as part of these larger themes or within their subject-specific classes. It could be also designated for their own personal passions and projects for community engagement. Those mini courses, we are going to be able to pull upon other staff members, but don't be surprised if we're also asking parents as well, hey, what are you interested in potentially teaching to students, and how might you be able to support them in that? So we want to make this really community-based. This is our opportunity to do that in these kind of open times. Now, if you look at the whole schedule, we've gone through every part of that schedule for you. This is how the whole kind of picture looks. Sometimes that schedule will disappear completely. And when the schedule disappears completely, we call those periods of time intersessions. So in between these 4 different thematic units, they'll have a period where they're able to travel. We are looking and exploring opportunities for different trips. Those will be either local or global. We want students to be involved in that planning as well. I had a student come up to me in another program. He said, we really want to go to the East Coast. We want to go to Boston. We want to actually explore the history of the United States. And I said, great. Why don't you bring to me the plan and how you're going to do that? And he rounded up the students. They put together their plan. They put together a budget. They talked about what they might experience in a sample itinerary, and they brought that to me. And we ended up going on that intersession trip. So we want this to be an opportunity for students to really flex that kind of planning part. Also an opportunity to get more immersed in culture. We will be having a China experience, and we'll also be having experiences locally to have students better connect and engage with their community. Finally, last but not least, we will share assessments. Now, this is the big thing. Parents are wondering, okay, Kyle, Ada, Karen, Matthew, Dr. Tim, this sounds wonderful. Everything's great, but how are they going to transition into secondary, okay? So we're going to chat just very briefly about that. Assessments are going to be more holistic, okay? They still will have their quizzes, their tests, but really when it comes to assessments, we can assess them in multiple ways, okay? We have portfolios, multimedia presentations, quizzes, project work. They'll still take the ISAs and MAP standardized tests. Those are our benchmark tests that all international students take in Hong Kong in year 7-8, which will be easy then to be able to monitor where they're at and where there might be gaps and where we need to support them, and also for them transferring into secondary. But again, our assessment picture is holistic. What you see there on the right is a portfolio. Students will be developing these portfolios to show their entire growth process. Here's all the skills that I have acquired, and here's the different work that I've produced, and sharing that in a very meaningful way. So imagine at the end of these, when the child is sharing you their growth process, the kind of work that they did, the feedback that they got, how they changed that, how they grew in each of these subjects, almost like the way in which you defend a doctoral thesis. And these kids are 12, 13 years old. I guarantee you, they will be, when they are doing adult level work, you'll watch them be able to articulate their learning in a way you've never seen before. And what does that look like? Grand finale, when it comes to a transcript, yes, they will have transcripts at the end of the year 7, 8 program. Those transcripts might look a little different than what you've experienced, but those are easily transferable to the programs they'll be entering into, potentially into year 9. Okay. So here is an example of a report.
Whoa.
So we're running out of time, but just know that we'll be able to report out in each of the subjects in terms of the skills. We've identified the skills that they're going to need. And we have ways that we are going to assess those skills, both in terms of the themes, thematic units, but also in terms of the actual core curriculum content within each subject. And this is very similar, by the way, to the way that the MYP reports out on learning. So it is very easily readable by other programs that they're going to be entering into, which will finally end with how they transition to secondary programs. So Karen or Matt, you want to cover this one?
Just on mute there, Karen.
Yeah, I would jump in. I was jumping quickly, but yes. So I did show this slide a few weeks ago at the other session. We just want to show you how after grade 8 for the children, they will transition into the other systems at appropriate times. So on the left-hand side, you see how our middle school, all that yellow band, how those years map to the same grade in other systems. And then on the right-hand side, you see after middle school, what they would go into, generally the last 2 years of MYP, or in the UK system, the beginning of the IGCSE or the beginning of high school. And we feel it's an opportune time from their development side to transition. But I'd also like to see if Tim would you like to pipe in with your thoughts and from your experience, the preparation for these programs. And yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Karen. One thing I didn't mention at the very beginning for those who may have missed it, I didn't add that I do know MYP and the diploma programs, DP, very well from the IBO. I've taught both, I've led both, and I've introduced both in previous schools. Having said that, I want to say that what we're seeing here presented to you is that the IMS middle school program is offering personalized learning, a combination of personalized learning, opportunities for agency, opportunities for inquiry, that from my experience are superior to what the IBO requires in its MYP program. It has a lot of similarities, and as has been mentioned, but in terms of quality and in many cases quantity, in terms of the required number of hours that are expected by the IBO, it's superior. I think it's important that you all know that. It's what's going to happen is going to be great. It's absolutely going to be exciting. It's going to be fantastic, and it's going to be great for our children, our students, your children, and I can't wait to be part of it. This is a great overview that Karen has spoken to here, feeding off of what I said at the beginning. Each year is a rehearsal for the next one, and schooling is education is life, and here's a way of showing it numerically in its various stages.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And with that, it's 7:59. We fit it all in an hour before questions. So if anybody has a question, nobody's written in the group, but please feel free to chime in or raise your hand on the Zoom. One question was, will middle schoolers be on the same floor as the younger ones? Just in case you missed it, they'll be on the ground floor. But of course, they'll be all around the building as well. The beauty of doing the middle school here is that everybody will be able to work together like we always do, and the youngest ones will see the oldest ones. So we are really looking forward to that possibility.
Yeah, a couple of elements there. So on that ground floor space, which we sort of described. If you come in and look at the gardens, it's that whole sort of wing on the ground floor. It's approximately 3 classrooms worth of space, so enough for us for a capacity of up to 75 grade 7 and 8 students in that space. And it's a really a flex space with some small breakout rooms that can be made into different sizes, as well as some open areas that can also be broken into different sizes as well. And there's a bit of sort of indoor-outdoor space there in front of that also. And then, of course, for the CASA children, they are up on the first floor. They're in that area where you need the pass to get into that wing. They're in their own protected area, but as Karen has been saying, that there's going to be that feel of that whole school feel, and our middle school students will very much have a real leadership role across the whole school.
All right.
I'm looking at some other questions. May I just someone asked about teacher-student ratio, and I just want to use this moment to just mention again that there will be subject-specific teachers, as Carl showed. Typically, there's a science and math, there's a humanities and English, and then, of course, we have the Chinese teacher, which in our fashion will also deliver content as well in the whole. And if you look at Montessori adolescent programs around the world, typically the ratio, I would say, is higher than in the other programs. So that mix of teachers will be duplicated as our community grows, right? And at the same time, at the moment, we will be also tapping into our existing single subject teacher network. So someone asked, is there going to be more tech work, etc.? We showed you the maker-based space. That curriculum is being built right now, and it will also feed into the themes. We are purchasing more materials for that area. Mr. Ludwig, who's our IT teacher, also will be developing IT for the middle school, and will teach that as well. In the future, maybe we need more, but for the coming couple of years, I think we'll be well served by the faculty we'll put in place. Now, people have asked who is the faculty. Well, we are still finalizing that group of teachers. So once we do, we will be able to announce that. But the structure is as I described.
Yeah.
There are
some other questions.
Sorry, just to finish off on the faculty. Yeah, we're in a very good place there in terms of faculty hires and where we are. We can see at this moment that we're going to have everything in place that we need from that side, but we'll wait until we have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and then we'll announce as a group. Yeah, Kyle, a couple of other questions that have come in there, and I think the first one was about ECAs available.
Yeah.
We do have Bill on the line as well. Bill can hop on and speak to that too.
Yeah, Bill, can you hop on and talk to that?
Yep. Thank you, Matt. Thanks for bringing me in. Yeah, so we've talked to the students a little bit about this this week. Actually, they were sharing their ideas for ECAs, and some of them are expanding on ECAs that we currently offer, but also looking outside of the box a little bit. There was things like sailing popped up, things like rock climbing, perhaps even looking around Stanley a little bit more. There's things like stand-up paddleboarding. So there's a number of different options that we're looking into. We've already started making connections with the Hong Kong Country Club. We've connected with them. We've got a meeting coming up about using their facility, so that might be a part of the PE program, or it might turn into an ECA opportunity. So we're really looking at how we can build some more connections and provide these opportunities. But ultimately, it comes down to what the students are really interested in. You know, we want it to drive from them. So we've been gauging some ideas from them. I've recently put up a board in the hall as well, where you can have your say on ECAs. So we had scuba diving come up today and ice skating, which might be a little ambitious, but we'll certainly take on board everything they've shared, and hopefully we'll find something that they're really interested in and engaged with.
We had a question there about the challenges for middle school students as they transition to non-Montessori conventional educational high school systems. And so maybe Kyle and Tim, if you maybe can just your brief thoughts on that transition to a more conventional education high school system.
Yeah, I can address that. I mean, I think we shouldn't create this false dichotomy like that it's either Montessori or it's completely conventional, because many schools are actually making things a lot more hands-on for students. So given that students will have so much hands-on inquiry-based learning, they'll be able to transition into this inquiry-based approach, right? Where it's not very teacher-centric and the teacher just stands in front of the classroom and the kids are just supposed to listen to them passively. So I think that's important to know that whatever secondary program they go into, they'll be already well versed in inquiry-based learning, well versed in terms of hands-on projects that they're developing, well versed in how to collaborate with team members, how to advocate and articulate their learning. So the only challenge that they might have, and I've talked with some students that transition, is yes, it is a little bit more difficult when they don't have as much agency perhaps, or as much freedom as they might have in a Montessori or kind of a smaller program. That's hard for them when it comes to just seat time. That part is a little bit of a challenge of a transition too. But I think by us also offering these subject specific, more similar approach as some other international schools might have to teaching and learning, that they will be able to transition and adapt. Anything else you want to add, Dr. Tim?
No, I think you've covered it brilliantly there, Kyle. I don't have anything to add other than you said exactly what I would have. We're completely aligned in your response. I completely agree.
All right. They said plans to expand the campus, I see. Karen, did you want to address that?
Yeah, at the moment, I mean, we are effectively expanding our learning space by the area that the middle school will be in is currently administrative area. So we're throwing out, faculty leaders and we'll find space for them and other leaders, and we're creating more learning space. There isn't a specific plan to expand the campus per se. I mean, in the future, if we have an opportunity to take down certain buildings and rebuild them, I have no crystal ball, but that's what typically would happen, which would be a huge project. So at the moment, we feel that our current facilities will serve our program, including middle school, very well with the extensions we're planning, with the going out extensions we're planning. Yeah.
And I see a lot of questions from Vishal. First, will the school be having a one-to-one laptop? Yes, we will be going to a one-to-one environment. Just like other international schools, tech needs to be as ubiquitous as possible in terms of learning process. We are also going to closely monitor that as well, because we want tech to be constantly used productively. So we will have digital citizenship kind of policies, but we will have a one-to-one program. Number 2 says, please could you explain more about the sports program in which public facilities? I mean, Bill mentioned very briefly one of the places he's approaching. We don't want to necessarily share all of those, just to know that there are different sports facilities, within Stanley and the surrounding area. And we are exploring all of those options. And the sports program, I don't know, Bill, we want to touch on that in terms of I think they're talking about probably team sports and competitions, maybe with other middle schools.
Yeah, certainly. So we do have a sports league we're a part of at the moment, the APSSO, which I'm the chairman of. We have about 12 different schools that take part in it. I've already made contact with them. They're very keen to engage in some, year 7, year 8 level sports with us, which will be fantastic to extend on what we do at the elementary level. And again, if the students have a particular interest, if we have a bunch of students that are really keen on, say, ultimate frisbee or pickleball or whatever it is, we can really tailor that and find experiences that are going to align with their needs. Of course, we can still build on our football, our basketball and netball programs that have been so successful at the elementary level. Even if we are maybe, if we have a shortage of numbers, for example, there's many ways to work around that. We can use some of our grade 6 students may be able to join the team. We may be able to do a combined team with other schools. There's plenty of ways for us to be flexible around that to ensure that the students still get those opportunities, particularly in the first year where the cohort is a little bit smaller. So there's plenty of opportunities out there. We're just going to wait and see, how our students and support them with their individual interests.
Question about the plans to expand the science facilities for lab as an experiment. So when we built the maker space, we did include gas feeds, IWA station, safe chemical storage. So all of that is there. We have additional 3D printers we're adding in, some laser cutters. And then, so we have all of the base there, equipment-wise, that we need to get started, and then we'll expand to that as needed as the program goes. But we're already set up to start that for a good range of experimentation right from the year.
And just to expand on that answer as well, even in these most outfitted science labs at international schools, sometimes they might lack the facilities that universities have. So we developed some university partnerships as well to support a lot in the science-based work. And our current hire, or looking like it might be our hire for science, has developed a lot of those connections with universities already to do really kind of adult level science-based work. So anything that we're lacking, even though we have great facility currently, we can also build those partnerships. It's asking about upper elementary students to transfer to other schools. I don't know if Karen or Matt, you want to take that, because I think we'll still support, Parrot will still be able to support in that.
Yeah, so our middle school program is designed to be boutique. It's only 75 children total for 2 years. So we know that we will always have some children transitioning from our upper elementary into the other secondary schools, and some will stay. And we believe that will be a very stable arrangement and a great arrangement for our kids. There will be support for those children who want to transfer out as well. We do have Harriet. We've mentioned her, and I know Harriet's on the line, but who has already helped a lot of our families in that transition process in the short 4 months she's been with us, 5 months she's been with us. Harriet will be covering also the middle school transition. There's a question later about how we will manage that. Obviously, it will be very key to our school to manage those processes very well from our middle school onwards. And I'm sure Tim, you will bring a lot of experience to that with and also in connecting with schools and even abroad as well in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. A big part of it is that external off-campus collaboration that means so much to help support the success of our students, not only while they're on campus with us, but their future, wherever that may be. So that is certainly part of the recipe for our student success and something that our parents can look forward to.
Jay asked a question about the Montessori materials. Beyond just the Montessori materials, I want to talk about the prepared environment, which is so crucial to the elementary program, and what kind of environment is going to foster curiosity, inquiry amongst students, and then what kind of environment is going to support them in exploring that. So, you'll be happy to know when it comes to these different thematic units, the provocations, the same way in which the Montessori materials in elementary provoke different thoughts. Like one is the timeline, of history and human history. So things like that is going to provoke this curiosity. When it comes to, different sustainable gardens, when we had a unit on that, we put different plants around the room. When it came to water quality, we put different water testing equipment around the room as well. So we're going to prepare materials in the same way Montessori prepares the environment to foster this level of curiosity. So it's going to be changing and dynamic and really supporting students in doing real kind of field work related to whatever that study is. One says, just want to know how IMS is supporting middle school students on application for other high schools after middle school. I think we kind of covered that. I think Harriet is still set up to be helping in that transition, right?
Yes.
What will the school fees
indeed
be?
Yeah, I'd be happy to answer the school fees question. So the middle school fees will be a little bit higher than the upper elementary school fees, around 10%. And then it will be a much higher resource intensity for us. So, we have really looked into where to strike that right balance. And then the PNR, the current capital instrument PNR that we have only covers up to the elementary. And so for the middle school, we will be putting in place an annual capital levy, which is actually the same amount as our existing capital levy program, which is 35,000 per year. So.
There's a question that came up about accreditation, which I believe is probably asking, will we still have the IMC accreditation for our middle school? And yes, we will. We're pretty much pre-approved on that accreditation in terms of the plans that we have sent them and prepared. That they're well aware of the sort of trajectory of what we've been trying to put in place. So once we have it all there to show, then they'll be able to certify that accreditation for us at the middle school level. Different components that we have, for example, the Montessori math component that Kyle was referencing to, that's AMI accredited itself. So there's going to be a lot of that authentication to true Montessori definitely will be there as we build this middle school program.
Yeah, and then one of the questions to ask about counseling or support for social emotional, I think in terms of the expansion, once it's at full capacity, to be 60 to 75 students, we're looking at a longer full-time position, right, for counseling. Karen, you can chime in if that's incorrect.
I believe that to be correct.
Okay. And currently within 8 to 10 or 15, small groups. In the meantime, to support their social emotional development, that's why we have the advisory program, where they have that adult level support in supporting them in those needs. Obviously, if there's things that lie outside of our area of expertise, and there's more kind of severe emotional needs, I think we have that. I think we have that level of support to be able to reference or refer for them to someone.
Yeah, and Kyle, just adding to that, we also have our, to support students in school, we have our relationships and sex ed program, which has been built through our elementary, and it's developmentally appropriate for each year level. And we'll look to extend that into the middle school with, again, more developmentally appropriate topics and themes to help children with these areas of their growth and development.
And yeah, that's one of the greatest advantages of our small size is no one's going to be, slipping through the cracks. And that's why we start with a morning meeting, is to connect in that way, because we know how important that is for adolescents. It says plans to expand the 60 to 70, expanding the 60 to 70 cohort size. I think maybe that's asking plans to get to there or beyond 60 or 70.
I think it's asking if we would go bigger than that. And I think that is almost related to a question of full secondary school. That someone in the registration side said, what about full secondary? I think, that's always something we would love to do. It is a huge undertaking. And so it's always something that on the cards, but I think for now, let's get the middle school up and running and give you the best program and really put our resources into that. So I would say for now, 60, 70, probably pretty much the size for middle, and let's see what the future holds. Next question.
Excellent. Kristen asked a great question. And I think that's, on top of mind for a lot of parents. They know it's a small program, which is our selling point. However, we have kids that might be quite social and want like large groups. And the question is around, inter-school socials or service. So yes, there will be a lot of opportunities for that, not just in sport, but for example, there's these GIN conferences, Global Issues Network. It's a huge network of schools where students actually develop these conferences at international schools, and they invite students from other national schools to share around these global issues. And I think especially since we're going to be very community connected, we will have lots to share in terms of what we're doing. So I'm already developing a lot of these relationships with these international schools. Service as well is a big component, and a lot have CAS continuing for MYP. And one of my dreams is to really get this whole inter-school network where we're supporting service related to Hong Kong specifically, and students are doing projects related to sustainability or climate change or supporting migrants who are coming into the city, whatever that might be. And this is a great opportunity for us to connect across through different schools in that service kind of realm. So yes, there will be those opportunities that exist. I think that's it on the questions. I hope we answered most of them.
I think in the group in the others there was a pre-question about smartphone free campus. Obviously, that is something that we will think very carefully about. There are very strict smartphone rules for all international schools. I'm sure, Tim, you have something in your school right now, so I don't have an answer, but maybe what might be, Tim.
Yeah, this is a issue that's top of mind in I think every school, both international and less so. This is something I think as a team we need to speak all together about the direction that we're going. But I haven't seen a school that or students who have benefited from not having strong rules in place about this.
Yeah.
I think we'll all be on the same page in that we will have strong rules about this. To what extent those rules will be, what exactly they will be is something you need to watch the space for. But we're all in agreement, I think, that they do not need to, these devices do not need to play a role on campus more than is necessary, if at all. But watch the space.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Look, let's look at smartphones as being, obviously they're very powerful technology, but they are a technology, as is AI as well. And some people might ask, well, what's your policy on AI? All schools are grappling with this. And we will have a very strong framework around when it comes to cell phone usage and AI integration. Is it being used simply to distract themselves or consume tech, or is it being used for creation? Because we have these powerful tools at our disposal that could really support, but we understand that, especially around adolescent development time, how important it is to get that right. So, I think when it comes to our technology policy, and it comes to developing some guidelines or frameworks around this, we're going to look at best practice. We're also going to have a shared conversation with students as well in terms of how these things are used and what's beneficial and really what's not beneficial.
Thank you. Right. I'll let Matthew wrap up, but I just want to say I hope that you've got, a lot of detailed information today. A lot of this is work in progress. So as you can see, there's a lot in place. Some of it may be adjusted. We want to give you good examples of what to expect. But what we've said today may not already be the full 100% answer. Does Me Inc. really look like that? Are really those things are the ones that are going to read? There's a lot of work that's going to be happening around refining everything between now and August and ongoing. But thank you for all your patience in listening today. Matthew?
Matt, before you wrap up, is it possible at the end to get a group picture? I'm totally fine if that's not possible, if people can't turn cameras on, but I think that would be really, if we look at this historic moment of like all these people tuning in.
That's a great idea, Kyle.
So please turn on your screens if you can.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, that's great. Look at everybody.
Oh my gosh, wow, look at it's amazing. Look at everybody who's part of this.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's like those huge mosaics.
Yeah.
Great to see everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
All right, let's everyone wave. Give a wave. We'll take a picture. Yay.
Thanks, everybody. Oh yeah, so there's obviously a ton to dive in and to know about there. This is there's a lot to this program. So we weren't able to do everything tonight or to cover all of it, but I hope that this has gone a bit deeper for you, and then that it's give you some more to chew on. And of course, as you ruminate on all of this, you might have more questions coming forward. Don't hesitate to reach out. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. One of the real keys here is that that we work at this from two angles. So one is having a great deal of rigor in terms of knowing what our students need, what our children need to be able to be successful going forward, and balancing that with really being coupled with what their interests and their passions are and tailoring to their specific needs, that they're always working at that attainable challenge place, that they're always at that place for them as an individual where they can take on something independently, but there's a challenge to it. They're really fully engaged with it and they're bringing their whole self to it. Because that's the kind of work that's going to have them be very successful as they go forward in life. We need to be able to engage with the world and with our community. So that's really what our goal is. It will be emergent and transformative as they go through this very transformative stage of life. And thank you all very much for joining us. And we'll see you next go around as we continue on with this discussion about our new middle school program.
All right,
Thank you,
can we
everybody.
do one thing? Can we raise everyone, like, since it's all about meaningful work, everyone raise the roof, okay? We're raising the roof on
There we
what's
go.
possible, okay? Let's get it. Raise the roof, raise the roof. Woo!
Thanks, everybody. It's great to see you all. What a great idea at the very end here. It's great to be part of it. Looking forward to meeting you all in person.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Thank you for joining.
Bye, everyone.